In the land of free speech, what can or should be done to curb the ever-rising tide of violent imagery and gruesome plots in film and television? In the wake of Virginia Tech, is America ready for Hostel 2? Now to the big story of the day. Hollywood has a long history of making money on mayhem and horror. The Lumiere brothers made the very first film back in 1895. The very first horror film, The Devil's Castle, was made the very following year. There has also been a long debate about how those images affect us, especially our young people. That national conversation is revving up again. The tragic events at Virginia Tech and word that movie studio Lionsgate is still moving ahead with its June release of Hostel 2, a film about female students being tortured. The tagline for the first Hostel movie was "Welcome to your worst nightmare." For many people, this intensely graphic horror film was considered escapism. Last year, during our CN8 program Night Beat, Hostel's director, Eli Roth, suggested that what we're trying to escape is the frightening real world.
In times of terror, people love to be scared. Anytime there's something horrible going on in the world, people flock to horror movies. And
is that during the time when we were worried about nuclear war? We saw all those movies about giant fruit flies.
Exactly. Well, look at the 50s. We were worried about, mutation, and all of a sudden these giant, mutant movies happen. We were worried about communism, and you get Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In the 70s, we had fears of Vietnam, and you get movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Last House on the Left. And then George Romero, there's fears of consumerism, comes up with Dawn of the Dead. And it's sort of like the horror movies have always kind of reflected, the successful ones have always really reflected the fear of what's going on at the time. And if you look at now, Saw 2 has made $85 million. And so it's like, and the whole pitch was, oh yes, there will be blood and dismemberment, and people flock to it.
Roth was right about people flocking to these kinds of movies. He mentioned Saw 2. Yes, it made $85 million domestic, and it had an international gross of $147 million. Its predecessor, which only cost $1.2 million to make, pulled in $103 million worldwide. And Roth's first Hostel, another low-budget film, generated $80 million. These kinds of numbers make studio executives drool. But has the American public had enough? Recent forays into more murder, mayhem, and gore have not done as well as expected. Films such as The Hills Have Eyes 2, The Reaping with Hilary Swank, the Rodriguez-Tarantino collaboration Grindhouse, and the Sony release The Vacancy either tanked or took in far fewer dollars than desired. Is this audience fatigue as suggested by a New York Times article, or is it a shift in attitude? According to the Hollywood trade mag Variety, 2 new films about campus violence are still looking for distributors. Will they find them? With the sad images of Virginia Tech so fresh in our minds, should they? It's interesting, sir. I was doing some reading about this, and when you begin to think about it, the idea of monsters and scary things, it goes back as far as, the Odyssey and the Iliad had monsters and creatures that scare us. And then in written literature, there's the examples of Dracula and Frankenstein, but the new thing is just so graphic and so suggestive that you seem to be hitting on some new stuff.
And I think they're raising the bar for it, because I saw Saw 1. I couldn't even, when the guy hacks off his leg, I thought, you know what, is it that I'm getting older? Oh, yeah. Now, my niece, who's 17, has seen Saw 2 about 13 times with her friends. So it's not just, I was going to say it's teenage guys, it's in their DNA, but it's not.
But see, that's one of the things, too, that it's supposed to be for 18-year-olds. Your niece is 17.
Yeah.
They don't bother to check. The idea was, it'll be okay to make a lot of money doing this, but you've got to agree that you will make an effort to see to it that only people that are 18 and older.
Not going to happen.
Doesn't happen.
Not happening. And I think parents are definitely in an uproar. And I really hate the movies that have the violence against women. When you were talking about Hostel 2, is that it just, why make that? I just saw the movie that condemned and interviewed Steve Austin, and there's violence against women in that too, and a rape scene. I can't watch that. I really can't.
Well, there is some indication that times will be changing.
I hope so.